drum software developer RS Drums makes some gorgeous third-party drum software that you can use in your DAW and use for your recordings and really make some crazy awesome punchy drums. However, the MIDI mapping page, especially for us EKit players, can look a little daunting at the beginning. So what I want to do is walk you through the steps for setting up your EKit with an RS Drums drum library. So that way you can be off to the races without any issues and start using some of these incredible samples that you get with RS Drums. My name is CK. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. So the kit that I'm using for this example is the Monarch from RS Drums. Now this library is already mapped well for my EKit. I'm going to show you how to do the same for yours. What we want to do is go over to the settings tab right here. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and click this little menu, and we're going to go down to clear map. And now we have a completely blank slate. Let me show you a couple navigational things around the menus so that way you can know where you really need to be. There's two very important pages. One is page 1 and the other one is velocity curves. Page 2, you don't really need to worry about to get up and running using your EKit. So we're just gonna really focus on page 1. The very first thing within this mappings page that we want to assign is gonna be the hi-hat pedal chick sound. Here it's just labeled as pedal hat. And if I click on that, you'll be able to hear exactly what it is. And that's essentially just pushing the foot down on the pedal and giving that hi-hat close sample sound. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. And usually across the board, G#1 is going to be your hi-hat pedal chick sound. And all I'm doing is just clicking the learn button until it's flashing like that once. And then I'm just going to give a quick push of my hi-hat down. And there we go. Now we have an assigned hi-hat pedal closure sound. Let's hop over to this page, the velocity curves page. And you can see right here that we have a couple CC learns. That very top one that just says learn CC, that's going to be the continuous control, meaning how open or close the hi-hat actually is. And so let's go ahead and activate that by clicking it once. You'll see it's flashing. Now, opposed to previous tutorial videos I've had on my channel, I've encouraged you to give it a really hard push down. We want to avoid that completely. And you're actually going to give your hi-hat pedal the gentlest push that you possibly can, just to where your two hi-hats or your hi-hat and your center cup meet. And the reason we want to go so soft, it's going to be very similar to calibrating an offset in your module. And when we calibrate our offset in our module, we're releasing the clutch and the hi-hats are just very relaxed, resting together like so. We are essentially copying that exact same model over here in the software by just barely pushing the hats together with a very gentle push of our foot on the pedal. So let's do that now. Okay, and if you look right there where it says CC position, we actually have a meter read. For me and my best performing hi-hats, I usually have a CC spread between 0, which is where it currently is right now, fully open, to about 69 to 73. But if I was to push way hard like this down in the 90s to 100 values, you're gonna then have to push that hard when performing to achieve nice closed tight hi-hats. So remember that it's just the most gentle push. All right, now let's move on to the next CC learn. And you can decide which order you want this to be. I'm going to go ahead and assign CC learn 1 to the bow of the hi-hat cymbal, which is the kind of meaty part right here in the middle. And then we're gonna assign CC learn number 2 to the edge of the hi-hat. So with that sensor flashing, it's ready to receive its signal. One tap, and there we go. Now we got a nice open hi-hat on the bow of the cymbal, but you'll see that we have nothing here. So we gotta assign that really quickly. Come over here, and just one tap on the edge of the hi-hats. And there we go, we get a nice performing hi-hat, which is great. Now there is one more step for the hi-hats before we move on to assigning the rest of the kits. If you're on the Roland VH14Ds like you see right here, there is a little bit of an issue that you could come across. So we have a really nice, good tight hi-hat, and I'm not pushing very hard with my foot. Now, if I do push really hard, the sample is suddenly gonna go away. Hear how it went away? So there's actually another assignable note within these hi-hats, and that goes for both the bow and the edge. So let me show you how to resolve that issue. And we are also done on this page within the MIDI mappings menu. All right. And now this is kind of a dealer's choice. You'll get to pick exactly which hi-hat sample you want to allocate to these dead zones. Me personally, I like to do the tight closed tip on the bow of the cymbal. So let's go ahead and assign that. And when I activate this, you need to make sure that you're going ahead and pushing down really hard on the hi-hat and we don't have a sample. Activates. And so now on the bow of the cymbal, no matter how hard I push, we now have a hi-hat sound constantly playing. We need to do the same for the edge though. So don't forget that you have two zones that both need assigned. And right below it, the tight closed shoulder, which is another word for edge. Man, that sounds so good. Make sure you're pushing hard with your foot. Let's go over here, activate. And now, we have a hi-hat. And we're ready to go ahead and start assigning the rest of our EKit to this library, and then you're gonna be off to the races and rocking and rolling. So now we could just go ahead and start over at the top of the list, which is gonna be our kick drum. For the kick, we just need to hit learn one, and I'm just gonna hit once. Boom, boom, we got a big kick. All right, and for the snare, center is gonna be exactly what you think it is, right in the middle. And then I like to go ahead and assign the snare rim shot to the actual rim of the snare, because typically when we're really playing and we do a proper rim shot, you are using the rim in that manner. So let's go ahead and activate that. And we don't have to actually do a rim shot, just hit the rim with your stick like this. And now we're cooking with a really nice sounding snare drum that has powerful rim shots when you're actually hitting a rim shot. And then if you do have a nice digital snare like this, it is always beneficial to go ahead and assign the side stick. And the way that the side stick activates is it reads your hand being on the head of the drum. So just make sure that's already on there when we hit the learn button here. And then now we got a side stick. Now let's move on to our toms, and you can see that we have a ton of toms that we can assign. So again, dealer's choice, you decide which toms you want to assign. I'm just gonna go ahead and start with the highest up tom, rack tom 1, and we're gonna assign right to the middle. Now let's go over to the second note, hit activate, and I'm gonna hit the rim. And that's gonna help you when you're really doing fast fills. It doesn't even have to be fast, but whenever you're working your toms, since this drum library doesn't offer actual tom rim clicks, it's more valuable to you to assign the tom sample to that than to just leave it blank. Because if you do accidentally hit the rim and you don't have it assigned to the tom, it's just gonna be a dead sound. There won't be anything playing. So I would encourage you to go ahead and fulfill that role for all of your toms having two notes. I'm gonna go ahead and finish up these other toms that I have assignable here. Activate, center, activate, rim. And now I'm gonna get the last floor tom. Okay, all of our shells. And then if you happen to have an auxiliary pad over here that I often use as a side snare, but since we can't really assign another snare drum within this library, I might as well go ahead and assign floor tom left over here to my actual left side. Cool. let's finish off the assignments. And typically I would start with the left crash because I kind of like to work clockwise. But since the list right here has right crash and right crash choke, which we'll talk about Aftertouch at the very end, I'm gonna go ahead and just assign right crash 1 note to the bow and then 1 note to the edge. So let's do that. Right crash note 1 on the bow. Crash 2, or note 2. We're gonna skip over the choke. Left crash, same thing. Bow. Edge. All right, let's take a look at the ride cymbal. You're gonna notice that we have the bell shoulder, the bell tip, and then we have the actual bow tip, which is gonna be the main meat of the cymbal here. But you may notice we don't have a crash available for the edge of our ride cymbal. So what I like to use is the far left crash. So I'm gonna go ahead and assign that first, and that's just gonna get 1 note. So now I actually have a sample assigned to the edge that represents more of a crash sound. You could assign the bow tip to both parts of the ride cymbal, not only on the bow. You could then take that exact sample and put it down here too. A lot of us like to use our ride as a crash at the same time. And if you're hitting your edge and that's the sample you're getting, it's not exactly going to feel and fit how it should. So the last thing we gotta do is assign the bell. I like to do the shoulder. All right, and the last piece of this kit that I'm going to assign is the China cymbal. Same thing, bow and the edge. Aftertouch. Let's talk about that really quickly, and let me show you a demonstration why I prefer to not use it. Because for me, and for some reason on this Roland TD27 and the Monarch, it just doesn't talk well. So that's over here on the velocity curves page. If I was to go and turn Aftertouch on, that gives me the ability to choke a cymbal. But let me show you an example, especially over here on the China cymbal. If I was to start really riding on this China cymbal, and I know that it's just the stand and the way that the cymbal is kind of getting pinched as it moves back and forth, but that pinch motion is actually activating the Aftertouch, even though I'm not physically doing it with my hand. So take a listen. So you hear how it kind of sometimes plays, sometimes cuts. For me, that's a no-go for sure. So if I am going to do some sort of a cymbal choke in a performance, especially for video's sake, if there is no video, assign the cymbal choke to an available note that isn't already assigned in your kit. And then when you're finished with your performance, you could just take the note that you performed and just move it up or down to the cymbal choke sample where that hit is supposed to be. And then if you are filming yourself, I go ahead and follow through with the motion. And then same thing, when I'm editing later, I can then just move that note to the actual choke sample. And then I don't have to worry about Aftertouch potentially getting in my head by making cutoff sounds while I'm performing. Now, very important, y'all, we just put a lot of time assigning our customized EKit configuration. We must save it. And what we want to do is come down here to the MIDI preset, and you just kind of tap in the window and this opens. And we are going to export custom map. And you can see that I already have like a CK TD27. So we're just going to go TD27 KV. And then hit save. Now, if I was to come up here, clear the map, the way that we bring that back now is same thing. Come in here, go to import custom map, and I'm going to select this. And you will see a little question mark on there. Usually that's kind of like is this file broken? It's not. Just hit open, and there we go. And the hi-hat should still be working just how we assigned it. really important to just take the time to get your assignments done correctly on your first session. Save that configuration. And then every time that you open up that in particular library, you just quickly pull up your custom configuration, and then you're gonna be good to go. I really hope that this helps you out. Enjoy those RS drums. My name is CK. Arcane Arrow is my music project. I'm so glad that you're here. And as always, I'll catch you in the next video.